Hello, everyone. Welcome to Plan Sync Weekly regarding work items, epics to work items migration. It's 22nd of February. We have first discussion point. Nicholas, you want to start with the blockers?
Um, I think, yeah, so we made progress and I think we have no blockers right now. There's only one merge request is going out in production right now that prevents modifying any work item epics. And once this is rolled out, we can enable the feature flag. Also, thanks for the discussion, Felipe and Alexandro. We will likely enable the feature flag this week, maybe tomorrow. And so the first epics in production will be synced as a work item when they created or when they are updated and already exist. And the blocker from last week is fixed. Thanks a lot to Optimize team for prioritizing this. And so, yeah, that's pretty much from our side. Alexandro?
Yeah, I wanted uh, to call out Eugenia's great work on work, continue to work on the syncing associations that are duplicated, can be duplicated basically. So that's a nice progress there. We got only a couple other associations left. And then we move on to the ones that cannot be duplicated, the ones that would need to be replaced. And there is two steps there. First, we want to implement the reading, and then the actual replacement of the stuff. But that's going nicely. And then we also added what I was very much looking for, a way to be able to see, track, and log any desynchronization that is happening. So there is an MR that Nicholas merged. So we got that. It's probably not deployed yet, but that'll give us more confidence in the fact that actually everything is being kept in sync. So we can track and monitor that as well, which is very, very nice. And then the next thing on the backfilling, we cannot run that, and like we are discussing a couple options. Do we want to run it for one group? It's not a standard thing in our background migrations to run it just for a single group on .com. We usually just run it for all of the records. So we're discussing if that should be an option or not. We still got time, because if we are running for the entire database basically and for everyone, we still need the feature flag to be enabled by default and deployed. So basically, people should have it enabled for the migration to run after the code is in place. So we got time to resolve that and have the MR actually ready to be merged and deployed once we have the feature flag enabled. So it's still on time. There is some discussion going. We still cannot merge it anyway, but hopefully it's going to be ready to be merged when we have the feature flag globally enabled.
Can I jump to my discussion item on this?
Yeah,
Now,
sure.
since we're talking about it anyway. When you say merged, first of all, it it's the code that will do the backfilling, not the actual migration. Is that right?
So we're calling migration everything that migrates data on the database side, right? So the database migrations are called migrations. I think there is a slight term overlap here, because we are calling migration when everything is done from the functionality perspective, right?
Yeah, this came up actually during the week. So literally any other term that's synonymous with migration would be a better word for this whole project. So I'll be more specific with my question. Um, is it possible to, if I remember correctly, we used to do data migrations this way, where we would create a rake task or some other task, and then the migration would simply use that task, right? So if you create like a rake task and you put it into the code base, nothing happens. You have to actually put a migration file in that then has a timestamp, and the timestamp is picked up and the migration is run. So I'm wondering, is it possible to have a rake task with an optional namespace argument, which then we wouldn't run the migration right away, but a self-hosted customer could go in and like run it on a namespace. or we could run it on a namespace?
Yeah, I mean, we can do it. I would just not advise because you don't have a lot of control over that rake task in a way, right? So you'll have to do, it's not a great experience. Also, this should not be something that customers run. We'd prefer this to run ourselves. We have mechanisms in place to make sure that that completed successfully or things like that, right? So then doing that in a rake task adds more complexity and more work basically to do on top of whatever the migration framework already has in place. So it is possible. It's not, it doesn't have all of the functionality of them running the migration. And like if we were to want to run it, for instance, on .com product, like on production on the .com, to ask someone to run it for a single group, I think that also has a lot of process around it to get approvals, to get SREs available, to get a lot of other process involvement into running it for a single group and things like that. And on top of that, like we're not talking a huge amount of records here, right? Like to be totally honest, we talk about like 300,000-400,000 records. It's not a huge amount. It's like okay-ish, it's not too bad.
Will the migration be idempotent? In other words, will it be possible to run it multiple times and not have?
Yeah, this one, yes. I'm not sure about what's following. What's the other one on the associations? It may not be like, I think it would be possible, but I don't have a 100% answer until we get to actual migration and implementing it and figuring out all the edge cases. But this one for sure, we can rerun it if anything gets out of sync. We can go back and just do it again and again.
So are you planning that call this one the simple one and the next one the associations migration or whatever? Are you intending to do these like separately? So we'll first run the simple one and then run the association one later?
I think even the associations one, we can have multiple of them, like because it's going to sync data to different tables. We can probably group some of them if we have all of the information, and it's good enough to run a couple of associations to be migrated, right? Or we can just have one migration that runs one association, another migration that runs a different association. So it can be split up and we can work either in parallel and run it all together or separately. Actually, the way that batch migrations are running, they are in queue sequentially. So it needs one batch migration to finish before the other one is run. So from that perspective, running a couple associations with them or more association within one migration is kind of preferred because you do more work with a single parsing of all the records.
Okay, thanks. Great explanation. I yield the floor to Amanda.
I just wanted to provide context as to why we're asking whether we could run migrations by group or namespace, especially for self-managed customers. We met with one of our large enterprise financial customers and talked to them about their desired pre-migration path and preparations. And one of the things that seemed important to them was the ability to kind of test the data before it runs on their production data. And so being able to do it at a root level namespace in their instance would be ideal, but they could live with potentially doing it in a test instance instead, though it wouldn't necessarily have the same kind of level of data.
I mean, we can prepare a script. It's not a huge deal. If someone on their side is willing to take the time to watch that, then we can, it's a fairly simple script to invite them to run it on a single group. And just a note that the way the migration is running, it will run on the epics specifically within that group. It will not take its children's epics and so on. So it's like only taking the epics on that specific group and running it. If you want to run it on the entire hierarchy, you'll have to specify all of the IDs in that group. But again, we can explain that and we can prepare a simple snippet script for them to test out. Even though if you're saying they have a test environment, they can run it there as well.
Okay, our call was with the product owner, but I'm going to follow up with the folks responsible for testing just to make sure what their desires are. So if it is something that they would require, then we, we can look into it further. But I would think that it would only be for kind of really large customers like this. It wouldn't be for everybody. So that's good to know that there's flexibility. Thank you.
Yep.
Super. I have the next point as well, but I think Nicholas has answered it. Yeah, so my question was, I heard you say we would sync on creation and update, but I wasn't sure if you meant we would create a work item when somebody updates a legacy epic, or if you just meant we would continue to update the previous.
We don't create a legacy, don't create a epic work item on update if none exists. So we only do it when on creation, and on update we sync these sections, and the backfilling then is there to create the initial set of work items. Thanks for making the question clear. Yeah.
So on the backfilling, we also have the option to update epics that already have an org item associated, right? So if we figure out that some of the fields or some of the attributes are not backfilled, we can go and say, okay, regardless if this epic already has an org item associated to it, go to that org item and update all of the records. And we also have the option to only create basically org items for epics that don't have already an org item created, right? So we can vary a little bit with that, like just don't go through the epics that already kind of are in sync, and only create the records for the ones that don't have a work item.
So I know that work items, legacy epics are not supported in terms of moving between groups, but work items are getting this functionality because issues need it. So I'm wondering what happens when an epic work item is moved from one group to the other. Technically, it would still mean that it's an update to an existing work item, but at the same time, we would be creating a corresponding legacy epic in that target group where the work item epic was moved, right?
Not possible yet.
Okay.
Is disallowed. It's not going to be allowed. So
Like moving of epic work items. As of now,
yes.
certainly, I mean, we can hide that functionality even if core work items support it, except that eventually we would need it, right, Amanda? Like
Yeah, we
ability
will
to
need it, and we will add it once we get to the point where the legacy epic is shrinked down, right? So there is less data to be moved around, because now if you move one epic work item with all of its associations, you need to do the same for the epic with all of its data. So it's a big structure to move around between groups and projects and so on. So we will specifically disallow it on the back end, even if that functionality, we're trying to not have that in the front end as well, but even if that's present in the front end, it should raise an error and say you're not allowed to do this operation.
But post conversion,
Mhm.
customer conversion to the new experience, that will be available, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. John, is that term okay?
I love that term.
Okay, good.
Let's replace it everywhere that we use migration.
Conversion, got it.
Yeah. No, in all seriousness, like this sounds one of those silly things, but it's, I think, really important because it causes all sorts of confusion.
Understood.
And by the way, just while we're on that, we have a list, like a table on the work items, I think the blueprint of like actual terminology where we've had this problem in the past. We decided that we will describe legacy things as legacy objects, not old objects, not what. It's legacy objects, right? Legacy views, these kind of things. So it could go there as well. I don't know.
I have the last one, but Nicholas has answered. I'll just verbalize for the recording. Wanted to know if we already have a test plan or strategy defined for testing the data post-migration, and if not, who's the DRI for this?
Yes, that's what Alexandru meant with the logging part. So we now, every time a work item gets created, an epic work item or an Epic work item gets updated. We check all the attributes we have and check if they match. And if they don't match, we log it. And we want to do with a script that goes through all Epic work items. Like maybe we do this every couple of weeks and check if all the attributes match. And that's how we find out if there's any issue. And as far as I know, from like Alexandro's plan, there's a part where there's no go back anymore. And I think we even thought about creating a script that would allow us to move back again if anything breaks. So we have that in the worst case scenario.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I've added if you remember last week, we decided that the customer pilot would be work stream 6. So now we have, I think, 2 or 3 additional work streams at the top of the agenda. Just pointing out that we have DRIs for almost everything, but not for work stream 5. And I'm also wondering, like with delegation, I know we're still working on syncing and doing some final things there. But I understand that delegation is going to be a kind of delegate if there is a work item, or just use the value if there isn't. So in other words, it's going to work no matter what stage the backfilling is at. So I wonder if we want to look for other members of the working group to start delegation work already. Like, can it be parallelized? Can it be spread out amongst the team? Or is it best handled, Nicholas, you're the DRI, is it best handled by 1 or 2 people?
If you have more people, you're welcome. We would welcome them. It's especially, I think Eugenia goes out of office for 2 weeks in March. There's summit, like so many things happening. Happy to have more people on board. And yes, we could parallelize this. The reason why we don't do this for now is because we have all of our hands full with the work we're currently doing. So yeah, if you have someone.
John, so I've added the information under the work stream 5 regarding the DRI availability. So we can discuss it offline due to recording.
Yeah, no worries. So for the benefit of anyone here who's not currently contributing to one of the work streams, or anyone offline watching it back, you're very welcome to put your hand up and get involved.
A question. Would work stream 5 need to happen after work stream 4 is complete? I mean, I think work stream 5, yeah. I mean, it would be just creating a record in the Epics table when it only has an ID and IAD, right? Okay, just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, work stream 5 I'm not too worried about, but work stream 4, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I expect that to be a pretty significant amount of work.
Yes, this will be our next focus, hopefully after next week. Thing is, Eugenia did an amazing work last weeks with all the syncing part and attributes, so we're pretty good there. But yeah, next week we will start digging into this delegation part, and there's also the backfilling of the delegation, or at least changing the associations, which will also be a significant effort. And we also need to sync this up with the data team, because they have pretty much our database synced to Snowflake, and they need to be aware of this, that we change all this data.
Do we have any other discussion points?
Do we need these other items in the agenda? We never use them, like demos. When we do a demo, that'll be a happy day, don't get me wrong, but I have a feeling that'll be the last meeting.
Now we can demo some of the stuff, I think, once we enable the feature flags on production, so we can show up the There is a work item, probably through APIs mostly, not much in the UI, but yeah, we can show that.
Oh, you can check it in the,
We can
in the UI.
also demo some of the loggings, what we get, where we are, some statuses like that. So things hopefully will come together in a week or two or something like that. So yeah.
All right.
We can demo lots. Melissa, let's put you on the spot. Didn't you demo to the leadership epics on Plan Stage?
What? Oh yeah. I mean, on Plan Stage you can do epics. And by the way, I'm planning to do a demo for the Customer Advisory Council. So I'll give you all a heads up of epics in a few weeks, just to get them excited and try to source people for the preview. But I will give everyone a heads up, because last time I tried to demo OKRs and like all the styling was messed up. So that was to a customer. So I'll create it in like a separate group that's not our like Plan Stage 1. But yes.
I think we were going to make a second group just for demos, weren't we?
Well, we put it in Awesome Code, so I'll probably ask to
Okay.
have some feature flags enabled there for epics.
Awesome.
There is a code freeze during Summit, so that may be a good time to plan the demos.
Yeah, we also want to think through like at what level of our like work item promotion process we want to put Awesome Co under. Like how cutting edge should it be versus what users
All the cutting edge.
No, man.
Well, that's what OKRs were.
No, because we use that for customer demos. It has to be
Yeah,
like,
good point.
we've looked at it in the plan test and it looks good. Then we promote Awesome Co. So it's like right before prod, but not as early as our Plan Stage ones.
Okay, so we're referring to that stage now as work items beta, and that is for now going to just include GitLab org and GitLab com. And I think, is Awesome Co a top level group, or is it under one of the?
No, it's under a marketing one and com.
Okay, so then it should get it at that level, just inherited from GitLab com. So that's not quite cutting edge.
I think that's fine. I might ask for Epic specifically early in that specific group. That might be interesting. I'll figure that out. I might need to demo out of our sandbox, which is slightly terrifying.
I think it's okay. We can just, yeah, well, we don't want to hold off any kind of cutting edge deployments or promotions into that group, but maybe we can make an exception if it's like a big customer demo.
And if I understand correctly, Heinrich is now leading the customer pilot effort. Great.
Correct.
Also, thanks for defining a name for this.
We're calling it the customer migration.
Wait, we are? I
No,
thought we
no, it's
weren't
a
using the
joke.
word migration.
No.
Wait, so what is it? The customer what?
I'm just calling it customer pilot, but I don't know if that's the official name. Is it?
Amanda, you had a good name just earlier.
Well, I have different names depending upon which direction we're going with. So once we determine if we're giving like just the sandbox or a more fully baked versus whatever, like it's either an early adopter, it's a first look, it's a sandbox. So TBD, let's stick with pilot for the moment.
Let's have a cool code name.
I hate code names. Sorry, it's always an inside joke and other people don't know it.
Zebra. Let's just call all the faces different animals, and that way it's all good.
Let's use like a migration animal. How about the monarch? Mariposa.
That's excellent. Except
Decision
it's not
made.
migration, remember? So no, not a good name.
We used the code name for in the AI team. We used the code name for Google Vertex API because we were not allowed to mention it anywhere in our public code, and the code name was TOFA. We tried to remove this at some point, but 2-3 months down the line, still people reaching out to us and asking what TOFA means and where it's coming from. So code names stick too much.
Yeah, it's really bad when you start using the code names in code too, and then
it was even in the database.
All right, no code names. All right, we done?
Yep.
Cool. Have a great day, everyone.
Everyone.